But I wanted him to get a good feeling about it.
Yeah.
I wanted him to, and he came, he was just tickled pink that he got, over 400 views and all these likes and comments, and everybody telling him, buy him a class and sit on that your investment fund and all that. So, yeah. But it was, the thing is, like, that's where I'm at right now. In fact, I just scheduled with Daryl, because I think I'm having to figure out, okay, I got to double down on something and just get something that I can have operating in the background so that.
Everyone ready? This is good. Oh, sorry, Paul, I didn't mean to interrupt. We're going to start with the fact that, we are here at South Sound Manor for the Hype Marketing class. I'm Troy Kirby. Patrick Davidson could not be here tonight. He is the sponsor of this event. He did say, hey, he's doing great. He's not dead. He's doing fine. But Cardinal Financial, and he did want to mention that they do excel in veterans lending. They have innovative programs for first-time home buyers. They have a recent increase in conventional loan limits, increase your buying power, and underwritten pre-approvals, which means that you can know with some certainty that your loan is approved before you buy. So that is, of course, the ad which got us the room. So I appreciate Patrick for all of his help, and I do appreciate all of you for coming out. I guess the first thing that I want to start off with is what this class is about and what it's not about. It's not about tearing people down. It's not about making sure that somebody feels bad that they didn't do something. I think those are ridiculous. It also doesn't mean that I know everything. I create as much as I steal. Good artists create, great artists steal. Da Vinci, Picasso, Bill Gates. They all learned something from other people they stole it. Doesn't mean that you stole it outright and you copyright infringement, but doesn't mean that you learned it all on your own through osmosis. I think that's important because way too often we worry that we're all frauds. We are frauds only because we learn from other people. That's what you should be doing. But we're always learning to try to improve. The one thing that I can say about whether it's this class or anything else, you're talking about marketing, it never stops. This is one of the things that really kind of irritates me. We always act like there's an end to something. We always act like there's a timeline. Always act like somehow, once we've done it, that's the goal, beginning, middle, end. There's no end. You always have to market. You don't get a choice. Otherwise, people forget. We were at the Lacey Lights Festival last night. Mike Stedman dressed up his car for me. We put the Lacey Pocket Gophers up there, the mascots. Now, we're out of season for 6 months. But guess what? We have them dancing in the back and we're through that. We aren't doing that because, well, we're selling something. Well, we are selling something, but we're not selling something directly. We're doing that to keep you top of mind that we exist. Because while I have a soccer team, and while that soccer team doesn't play until April or May, I still need to keep you engaged. I still need to make sure that you're there. The problem is everyone stops. Everyone stops marketing. Oh, my event's done. Your event just happened. Yeah. Keep doing it again. Great thing in sports that we always learned, when do you all think that we sold season tickets for the next year? We sold them mid-season of the same year that we were selling. There's a reason for it. Yeah. It never stops. We don't get to the point to where we say, hey, good enough. Because once you say that, you almost give up the ghost. We never stop telling people. We never stop being aggressive. Some people don't like that around here. Aggressive. Oh, it's so aggressive. I'm feeling like I'm hearing it all the time. Great. That means it's working. Andrew Barkus, he's a representative in this community, 2nd District. He hired me over the summer to start doing some of his political marketing. Great guy. But guess what? When we looked on the back end, we started finding ways to be aggressive on Facebook to where people who did not know that he was their representative kept saying, I'm seeing your stuff all the time. And it wasn't just the same hit over and over again of the same message, but it's the fact that they're in their feed and they're like, well, who is this guy? I didn't even know they represented me. That complaint means it's working. That complaint means it's a sign that won't go away. It's a consistent, constant sign. And once you give that up, you're literally giving up your market share. And once you do that, people don't care the second time. Because once you go to them and then you leave, they suddenly figure out that, I've seen it before. They kind of disregard you. You know this working with the Sonics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, never goes away.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we always sell in advance. This is one of the things that interests me of how many people will say laissez-faire, the all-seeing hand. We don't have to sell right now. Oh, we don't have to bother them right now. I used to get that in college athletics all the time from the development office. Oh, I'd feel really like, bothered by the fact that we're selling football right after football ended. Yeah, you would, because you're paid to care. There's a difference if you're not paid to care. Imagine the fact that you may or may not have heard that message before. We often stop ourselves from marketing simply by the idea that we're actually paid to market. So we already think we've heard that message. Guaranteed the majority of times people have not heard your message at all. The amount of times that people did not know that I had a soccer team, even up to the point to where they even showed up to the game and were surprised with bewilderment, or even after the season and said, oh, that'd be cool. It would have shocked me had I not worked in sports, had I not experienced that before with other teams. The thing is, you're on everybody else's time. When you're marketing, you're not on your time. You're on what time they choose to give you. And what happens is everyone thinks that at the last moment, oh wow, everyone's just going to show up. We all thought that way, and we all acted that way. That'd be amazing, but I don't think it's going to happen. More than 30 people signed up for this course, for this one tonight. I look in the room, I don't see 30 people. I'm not berating the people that showed up. Things happen. When you're marketing, things happen. Things change. People change. Priorities change. Things change. You might have somebody in the hospital. Somebody decides they just don't want to go. Somebody's feeling sick tonight. Some kid decides that you've got something better to do. Your whole thing is to not stop marketing. Your whole thing is to not go, oh, good enough, we're sold out. No, you're consistently selling even if you are sold out. Because a lot of times, people buy the bullshit. We don't buy the bullshit, do we? I mean, that's one of the keys, right? I know it's a dirty word, but really, people will shovel it all day long for you. They will tell you how they'll show up. Oh, if you only do this. Oh, if you only do that. How many times I was in the development office at these universities where people would tell me, oh, if I was only asked the right way, I'd donate. Then you go, oh, okay, so then you start put up or shut up. You know what happens? Majority don't give. People honestly want to give you an excuse, and that's okay. But you have to realize that that's an excuse so that you can keep marketing. Because once you start shutting down and once you stop selling, you end up, kind of destroying what you have. So we all need to develop it to where we form opinions. Everybody has an opinion of me right now, whether you want to or not. Everybody has an opinion of several people, whether they want to or not. Let's talk about two people, Donald and Hillary. Obviously, Donald Glover, the actor, Hillary Swank, the actress, right? That's who we're thinking of, right? Oh, of course not, right? But here's the thing, you have a defined ability to know who you're thinking of because of whether the traits you like, whether the traits you don't. And some of you kind of puckered up like, uh-oh, we're going to talk politics. That's not the point. And those people did not come overnight, even though people like to suggest they did. Each of those people have 40 to 50 years of marketing behind them. Those are marketing machines. I don't care what you think of them. They did not pop up overnight. Even if they go, oh wow, they entered a presidential race. Those people had been marketing before most of you were even born, or before most of you even went to school. They were marketing. Something was marketing for them. And it didn't stop. And it never stops. Even now, if you notice, both of them, the ones that we're probably thinking of that I didn't mention, are probably marketing now. You consistently hear about them. Because if they don't, they go away. They die. They lose their superpower, which is the point. And that's exactly really what we have to fight against, is the fact that you have to make sure that you are consistently in the sphere of the mind. And guess what? If there's something else there that is a Donald and Hillary, you have to actually change your brand in order to make sure that it coexists. Because the problem is, if you decide that you're a Donald or you're a Hillary, specifically that name, and it already has a recognition, you ain't gonna matter. Because I don't know about the rest of you, but nobody gives a crap about Hillary Swank. Won 2 Academy Awards, and if I said Hillary, nobody would ever think of her. Nothing against her. But if you think about it, if she really wants to be something different, she really wants to market herself, she almost has to create a separate brand for herself. Because once you get to that level, once you become Beyonce, I don't care if another Beyonce is born today and she's a better singer or she's, whatever, she's not going to have that brand. Cher, doesn't matter. Once you get to the singular name, once you get to that category, and I know we're talking about single individuals, but they're all brands. They're all people, they're all things that matter. So if you're that thing in this area and you have that market share in that area, that's what's going to matter, nothing else. Some of this, though, comes to the idea with both of those names, both of those brands. And I know I'm using individual names, but I don't care if we want to talk about Harley Davidson, Apple. It's all about giving buyers ownership. Think about how much ownership people have in Apple. People will literally fight people on Windows over Apple. They don't even own ownership over it. And they seriously have this idea of what they feel Apple is and what they feel Apple isn't, and what they feel Windows people or Google phone people or whatever are. That's ownership. Those are buyers. Those are people that care about you, that brand, even if they technically do not own a piece of it. They don't own anything of it, but they care. And once you have those, that can be a dangerous mix, only because now you can't move as much within your brand. But they have skin in the game, and that's a great thing, because without buy-in, you've generally got bullshit, right? You've got people that will tell you what they want to hear, tell you what they think your product will be. Henry Ford said it best, that if he had really asked customers what they wanted, they'd still have better horses, right? They're not going to have horsepower. It just depends. But once they have ownership of what you're doing and they accept what you're doing, it changes the ballgame. And so whatever you're selling, whatever you're trying to create, has to have an ownership that people want to adhere to. So that doesn't mean they just buy it, but they want to talk about it. They want to sell it for you. They want to make sure other people buy it for you. They're protective of it. Right now, I see somebody who is a Seahawks season ticket holder, right? Alan, you have ownership over that team. The last I checked, you don't own any part of that team, but you still have ownership over it. You care about it enough, and you're still sitting next to a person that's a Denver Broncos fan. So, but if you think about it, those two brands, while they might be respective of each other at a certain point, I don't know why, it always sucks, but everybody else, it's about ownership.
It's not 2013 anymore.
Yes, it's not. But what's funny is we also adhere to different kind of marketing schemes that are really we always think they're fail-proof, right? Fail-safe. The idea that, well, we've got all these people that are ownership, they're paying attention, so what are we going to do? We're going to do the big splash. We're going to have one day that's all huge. We're going to make sure that one day we're going to announce PR, we're going to hit every type of billboard, we're going to make everything happen, and you know what? Nobody cares. Because even when you have ownership, even when you have some people that pay attention, the majority will not. It's always a long game play. The problem is that way too many people go in, they go guns blazing, and they expect everybody to pay attention. It doesn't happen. There's a huge accident that actually happened in this county today. Everybody has ownership, right? You all live in this county. Huge accident, shut down some of the streets over here. Guaranteed you, most of you hadn't heard about it. It's because you're not paying attention to it. It's the way it is. We're in fragmented times. So you have to consistently tell people, and you consistently do things, and hopefully consistently people aren't getting hurt. But at the same time, it does matter that you don't stop. You don't just decide that a big splash is going to do, because a big splash is really a fraudulent type of action. Not everyone reads the newspaper anymore. Last I checked, not everyone has Facebook. Last I checked, not everyone has Instagram. Not everyone has whatever little thing. The amount of people that try to sell me on radio, I'm not belittling radio. I'm sure it exists for a certain segment of people, but I can't tell you the last time I actually listened to radio, even in the car. But if I put all my money and all my effort and all my stuff into radio, you know, does that really mean I'm going to reach the people I want to reach? Does that even mean I'm going to reach the people I want to reach that are listening at the same time? Just depends. Always a great example of this, Sam Nunberg. He was a guy that went, and he said, he was a Trump associate, said all these outrageous things in March, right? One day in March said outrageous things. He got on every single cable channel, got in every single newspaper, every single radio station. I mean, outrageous stuff. Internet, all of it. Majority of you, I'm guaranteed majority of you have never heard of him. I was just fascinated by this guy, because this guy, you know, he did the big splash for one day, if you could do it. He was even drunk on the air at one point during a CNN interview, saying outrageous stuff. Nobody cares now. Nobody cares, even if he gets indicted. The point is, no one knows. And this is the first concept that we want to use of everything. Doesn't matter how many people you tell, no one knows. No one cares, no one knows. No one has time for it, no one knows. 30 people signed up. I had 96 at the last one. Guess what? 96 people. No one knew. And only 60 people showed up. You're playing the laws of averages that only a few people will actually have skin in the game and only a few people will care. You know? Some of the people that said they were going to be here tonight swore up and down that they were going to be here tonight, did not show up. Doesn't mean we stop, but we don't stop marketing. We don't stop doing those things. And this is, I know, repetitious, but it makes a point. Because I see people all the time, and especially in this community, stop. Why? Just keep going. Keep pumping. I had people, you know, when I was doing the pocket gophers who go, I'm really sick of that. I see that on Facebook all the time. Great, it's working. They don't see it that way. They see it as an annoyance. That's awesome. You have to think about me, even when you don't want to. I kept waiting for somebody to say, you know, like, this was enough. They, you know, they finally got it, whatever. But what was interesting was a little boy, and he was 10 at the time, and I talked about it enough, just offline with him, about all the stuff that we were doing, the e-game trailer, etc., that his mother actually asked me to stop because she was tired of hearing about the event that was happening on May the 5th. And then his father said the same thing. And it's like, so you get them to care, right? You know, oh great, I got this kid locked in. You know who I didn't have locked in? The parents. Because guess what? He didn't show up to any of the games because the parents weren't locked in. So even when you tell the right person, even when you tell the person that might actually experience all the bounce houses and everything else that we've got, you've still got to get the person that's actually going to transport it there. So that's also where it comes into, who are you marketing to? And even if you market to the right person, do they have the ability to actually activate your brand for you? So one of the things that I think kind of comes out of events in general is establishing rules. You can see them, you know, limited capacity, we establish rules, extended edition. Even when I screw up on the date, you know, I screw up on the day, all those types of things. But it's always about not violating the rules. So let's say that this entire thing had been sold out, or that I lied to everybody who is watching this right now and said that this was sold out. Wow, sold out. And then they came up and they found out it wasn't sold out. How would they feel, right? You know, I could lie all day long to tell you that there's 200, 500 people in this room. We know there's not. Now all of you can keep that secret with me or not say anything, but guess what? It still comes back to the idea that eventually that'll get out. And people will decide that that's only a priority because you told them it was a priority, and then they won't show up anyway, or they'll show up on their own time anyway. That's why you have to be honest with yourself and honest with your person that's buying the stuff. It's about creating a respectable brand. You know, so many people are willing to violate their brand for the idea of a lie. You know, how many times, you know, Alan's in the room, you know, he does a networking group. How many times do people want you to lie about what, you know, hey, we've got 30 people that are C-level executives that are, you know, and they're just going to activate yourself. You know that if you tell people that, they're done. Because they're going to experience it. It's not going to happen, and within 5 minutes, that's done, right? I mean, the problem is that so many people are willing to violate their own rules. Networking groups that shut other people out. I don't get that. How does that network? You have to realize that when you violate your rules, it creates precedent. It also creates the idea that other people will talk about it. Other people offline. The idea of your reputation is really built on what people say about you, what people think about you, how you treat other people. Gossip actually goes beyond warp speed. Literally, if you think about it, I could say something about you, and if I have 5 people that will believe me on gossiping, even if it's not true, you really spend your entire life trying to defeat it. Doesn't even make it true at this point. But it's really about your integrity of your brand. Whether or not you'll have people that'll go, no, I know that person wouldn't do that, or that person wouldn't say that. That's really your only wall of defense. If you look at Yelp, Yelp is really just people that complain about everything in life that have no standard for why they do so, but have gotten away with it simply on the idea that they're paying it forward. Look at Amazon reviews. Amazon reviews are the most sadistic thing I've ever seen in my life. The majority of time, they'll even admit they've never actually used the product. That's why now they have to put verified buyer next to it. There's a reason for it. People will literally go on and say the worst things possible. It doesn't make it true, but it makes it something that, you know, people have to defeat. I mean, Instagram is simply built on women making other women feel bad. I mean, you've got women in poppy fields with a nice dress saying #blessed. You know that's not accurate, but it's to make other people feel bad. It doesn't seem like it would think that way, but guess what? They get a lot of views. They get a lot of potential, a lot of people like, a lot of people deciding to buy things based on activation. It's all based on the idea of really selling you on an image that may or may not be true, and some of it's negative. You know, I think that it's important not to lie. And I know that sounds weird to say that, but there was a band in LA that actually went to Europe. It made news probably about 4 weeks ago, heavy metal band, and they sold Europe and these bars on this idea that they had this huge audience, right? So they had YouTube audience that they faked. They had these sold out shows. They said they had 300 tickets sold. They really had 4. So I want you to put yourself in the mind of the venue operator in Britain right now. The one who has to go to explain to their boss that they have this great band that they sold people on, that they had to spend, first class, everything. What happens then? All of a sudden, you have a person that's basically either out of a job or their reputation is sullied based on other people lying. And you may not think that that's a big deal because, well, you didn't experience it yourself. But think about the next few bands that actually are credible coming out of there, whether it's the United States, whether it's LA. Everything kind of depends on a reputation and on a brand. And when you expose that and when you decide to disintegrate it, really it changes who you are. You know, we get so excited by social media. Oh, I got 1,000 views. I don't know what 1,000 views are, but I know what 50 buyers are, because they've actually bought something. It's great to have 1,000 views. Anybody can fake views. If you give me $500, I can make sure that you have 10,000 views. Great? If you want to do that, I will make sure that you have 10,000 views. I will spend the money, but guess what? It will not actually activate to what you want. Just because you can get that many people, especially on social media, it does not mean that you actually have 50 buyers. So you just wasted money. You spent $10 a buyer to get nothing. You know, to me, that's one of the things that, whether it's digital media or in general, when it comes to marketing, people totally mistake. I'd rather have 50 people that actually want to buy my product than 1,000 people look at it and kind of go, because you know as well as I do that half the time you see it in scrolls, half the time you see it in stuff and you didn't really pay attention. It's not like 50 people invested in your product. 50 people going, wow, I really want to see that. It's 50 people that kind of went, or 1,000 people, doesn't matter. there are ways to kind of build an email list. There are ways to build stuff to where you actually have connectors. Anybody use LinkedIn here? Yeah. So do you pull off the emails from LinkedIn? You can actually do that in the back, pull it off and create your own list. And you can actually do that for free. And then segment that list. So you don't send it to, your mom who happens to have a LinkedIn account too, but you've got their private emails and you have the ability to do it. You have to figure out how not to spam them. But if you have a special interest, if you have something that can micro-target, that's where you're actually going to win buyers. Because your whole idea of marketing should not be to have the most people see it. That's one of the more ridiculous things to kind of target. It's having the most people buy it. So if Paul, who has his own book, instead of trying to market every single person, tries to market only the people that want to actually network and learn how to efficiently network, right? He's got his own book. That is specific to targeting people who are in the networking world, who want to network better. Not people that don't want to network, that happen to just randomly know him, that have an account. I have an email that goes out every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m., went out this morning, and it actually goes out to the sports industry. None of you will see it. You might because you were in the sports industry, but everybody else won't. And it's nothing against you, but it's targeted specifically to sports industry executives. If I start putting people on that are not sports industry executives, after a while it dilutes the field. It dilutes it because then all of a sudden the shares go down, the clicks go down, the opens go down. I get people asking why I'm not a part of that, or they start claiming that it's spam because they forget why they signed up to it. You can just throw anybody on there. That's not a good way to have an email list. That's not a good way to have a targeted list. The problem is way too many people want to get, the widest amount of people possible, rather than honing in on the more specific people that are actually going to buy your product or consume your product. I'm all about segmentation. I think there are many people in this room that probably don't actually align together. Some of them all want marketing help, more kind of interested in this class, but when you look at it, we could segment out even further. One person's a diehard soccer coach, right? One person's real estate. One person works for a C-level executive. But they're all different segments. And when you can find those segments and you can actually hone to it, when you target your message, you're going to have much more success. The problem is that everyone just tries to throw everyone in the same bubble, and then you find out that really that doesn't really help your bubble. That just kind of dilutes, because you can't have the same message honed down when you have so many people in it. It's also about touch points. The amount of touch points that you have makes a difference. It's not just about an email. It's about another message. It's about a conversation. It's about maybe a phone call. It's about maybe the amount of times that you've interacted with that person. That makes the difference. If you rely on just saying, hey, buy my stuff, the amount of times I've seen that. I don't know how many times you get like that new Facebook friend or that new person, and suddenly they're just, buy my crap, buy my crap. Doesn't take very long, right? You go, unfollow. You might still be friends, but you're not going to read their message. So what's the difference? They should pin you into a group that really cares about what you care about. They really pin you into a time to where they have a conversation with you and find out exactly what you want. Ziggy Ziglar, best greatest salesperson of all time, is on Johnny Carson, and Johnny Carson goes, I hear you're the greatest salesperson of all time. He goes, sure, I guess. He goes, well, sell me this ashtray. He goes, I need to know why you want it in the first place. He goes, well, it's a good ashtray. He goes, well, what's it worth? About $20. Ziggy goes, sold. The point is, you have to decide why you want something. And we have to make the questions that drill down to why you want to invest in it. The problem is with marketing, we seem to think that it's as much spending as possible. That's not the point. You can spend to oblivion and still not reach your audience. Instead, you should find out what your audience wants. There's a reason that movies actually have test audiences several times before they put out a movie. It doesn't mean that they all can't be auteurs or anything, but they want to make sure that they've actually hit the most information possible. The idea that you don't test out your audience, the idea that you don't try to find out who your audience is and play with them at all, that's on you. That's really the worst type of marketing possible, just putting up a billboard. Because guess what? The only person that sees the billboard is probably you. You're not your buyer. I can give you an example of ways to segment out your audience. Pumpkin spice lattes. You can't buy them right now, can you? They're already done. They're only during that October period, right? The September-October period. Because that's when Starbucks has decided that's when you're most likely to see pumpkin spice lattes move. If they tested out their audience, they'd know when their audience is likely to buy. That's why they do it. If they didn't test out their audience, they'd be selling them in the spring or summer. Are you saying you buy it? Are you saying you drink one? Yeah. Yeah, but you get my point, right? Like, you're not going to see them next summer, right? They're only at that specific time, and they're making it to where, guess what? If you really want to drink that nasty drink, you have the ability. It matters, though. It's about testing your audience and making sure that your audience cares. You know, there are 2 returns, and we suffer from those returns all the time. The idea is return on investment, whether or not we're actually getting back, whatever. But the second one is the biggest one that actually hinders us, and that's return on ego. That's the one we don't talk about a lot, but you know, in sweet sales, it's what they talk about all the time. Are you really just there so you can buy a suite so you can show it off, or are you there because you think you can activate those 5 clients because you have a corporate account and the corporate account doesn't? Problem is a lot of times it's return on ego. Idea is that it really doesn't help you, but it makes you feel good. But is that really why you're using marketing dollars? Oh yes, I get to have my, you know, Corvette that delivers, you know, stuff left and right. It's not really going to work for you. Maybe you need a giant big box van, but that should be the return on investment, return on ego issue. Problem is way too many people are focused on what they can buy because they consider themselves their buyer. It's not who cares. Your buyer is opposite of you, because if your buyer was you, your buyer would be sitting where you are, selling you. You know, the second-hand concept. No one cares. This is a big one. I always get this at menus. Hey, we're a little short-handed tonight. Yeah, I don't care. It's not me that does your scheduling. It's not me that does your hiring. Oh, hey, you know, we're having trouble with, you know, all the service stuff. We're training new people. I don't care. I mean, I don't want to be insensitive, but at the same time, people don't consider that part of the marketing. People don't consider that what your customer sees is what I see. There's a bar in town that I frequent. I know they've had some issues with, you know, people's conflicts of who likes who's all these issues, and you know why I know that? Because they fight in front of you. Literally fight in front of you. And at one time I actually talked to one of the managers and I go, hey, you know, why is this happening, this happening? Well, you should know about that. It's funny you mentioned that. I know about that because you're putting that out in front. The problem is, I don't care. I'm hearing it because of this. That should be a correctable issue. Or it should be an issue to where maybe certain people can't work there anymore. I know, dare say. But it comes down to marketing. People don't consider themselves a lot of times in restaurants, who their servers are, you know, those people that wait on you, whether they're a coffee shop. That's all marketing. It's what I see, what I feel, who I am. Everyone will focus so much on the idea of what they can plaster out there that they forget that the customer service marketing is really where it comes down. I go into there's a Starbucks here in town that I go in, they not only know my name, they know my order, it's almost scary. And I mean, it's to the point to where they've told other people that work there. I can go to other Starbucks, they won't know that. That's fine. Everyone wants to say that every corporate place is the same. I don't think it is. There's a UPS store when I was at Seattle University, and I was putting out probably about 10,000 pieces of mail every single year for basketball. And what was funny was the amount of times that this lady named Cheryl would help me. And she would just know everything about it. And you know what's funny? They moved her 10 blocks away. Guess where I went? I actually drove the 10 blocks. I'm not going to go train Todd or anybody else, and I have nothing against Todd. Seems like a nice guy. But the point is, that's all marketing. What you train your staff to do. what you train your staff in interaction to do is all part of marketing. And the customer service part usually gets lost on the idea that, well, that's not part of our ad campaign. Your ad campaign is what I think you are. And that's where the hype marketing comes in. If you come to anything that I do, I have to train my staff. And that includes the vendors, by the way. So if I have a vendor who's nasty to our people, they're not there this next time. We had a person that, you know, really probably was a little bit of a grumpy bear to a kid, made him cry. Guess what? You're not there anymore. Not trying to belittle anybody, but we're not going to put up with it. And that's where the marketing comes in. You think marketing stops the second that you're done putting up a Facebook ad. That's where it begins. You have a real estate business. You do all the stuff for them, and they're ready to sign on the dotted line. And then you forget those 5 papers. You know, whatever those 5 papers are. And you kind of ho-hum it. And guess what? You have some issue. And you don't get back to them. You've just lost your marketing. I don't care what you sold them on. That, to me, is the point. And guess what? Sometimes they're never going to be happy. Sometimes we get those trolls that just, like I mentioned with the Amazon stuff, that'll just leave negative reviews that didn't even use you. Because you have competitors that have now decided the only way that they can get ahead is to actually hire people to put negative reviews on you online in order to diminish your grade. What does that say about them? You know, I would be more hesitant to use a business that did something like that, but yet it occurs. And yet people sometimes feed into it. Just depends. Again, I come back to the idea of you're not your buyer. This is a big one. So the Elks Lodge, which is here in town, in July came to me. And Audrey's a great person. Just met her. I was working actually at a beer garden of all things. But she said, I hear you know about marketing. We want to put on an Oktoberfest. Great. Sat down with her like the next week. I said, when do tickets go on sale? She goes, well, our people don't feel real comfortable about tickets. Why? Well, they don't like to pay fees. Well, are they the ones buying the tickets? No. Okay, so why aren't we doing that? Well, because we're just going to cook up a few or whatever. And I said, yeah, but what if, what's the capacity, 180? What if 180 people show up? Well, that's not going to happen. How do you know? How do you know people don't want an authentic German Oktoberfest? She thought about it. They put them online. Guess what we sold out to? 180. They actually had people at the event asking if their friend could come. No, sorry, we're sold out because we believe in those rules. Most of you probably didn't even know that a German Oktoberfest, which was very authentic to the point to where it had, you know, German chocolate cake, Black Forest cake with alcohol in it, which was, which was very loopy. I was like, wow, that's some good stuff. You know, big steins and all that. I mean, it had the music. A lot of you want to attend now, probably. You're like, wow, this sounds like fun. You didn't even hear about it because it didn't hit your channel. It didn't hit your message. But what if we violated the rules? We kept letting people in. Or what if we didn't have enough food because nobody sold tickets online? Because somebody felt uncomfortable. The point is not to belittle somebody, but the reason you feel uncomfortable is not the reason not to sell. And if somebody shows up and all of a sudden there's not enough food and they had made their plans, you know, these aren't just plans for you. But what if you have like a babysitter? You know, the clock's starting to run, right? You showed up, you made this your priority. You showed up, you decided at the door I was going to pay because I was told there might be food available. Or guess what? I took my mother out of the nursing home, because we actually had quite a few of those, to where they were, you know, in their 80s and 90s, and this is the time to hang out with mom. And we're going to spend this Saturday night sitting at the Elks Lodge with her and drink and eat food. And all of a sudden you don't have enough food. All of a sudden you don't have the things that you said you were going to have, like the accordion band, like all of the other things. That makes a difference. That changes their perception of you, not just at that event, but what you can do as the Elks Lodge, as anything. Your reputation is on the line every single time you put on an event, every single time you put on a customer. And the amount of times that people refuse to really kind of abide by that and think it's, oh well, there's plenty of fish in the sea, you know, I mean, their reputations get around. How many times have you heard of guys that are players? Doesn't take very long, right? Gossip's at warp speed. It is. And the problem is that way too many people think they can skate out of it. It's not that big of a town. Literally in this county, there's only 300,000 of us, and half of us are children. I mean, you have to think about that. Some of us are grown children. You know, if an event develops a face, this is where you have to kind of consider what makes you unique, what makes you interested in that brand, what makes the customer interested in that brand. Unfortunately, everybody just wants to be the same as everybody else because, hey, you know, we're putting on Oktoberfest. We're putting on this, we're putting on that. Well, what makes me cross the street for it? You know, what makes me decide that this is unique? What makes me decide that this is the best thing? Do you have great customer service? Great, anybody can have that. Fewer people have that than it should. But what are the other things that you can do? It doesn't take much, if you think about it, to make something unique. The problem is that so few people want to just go that extra mile. You know, they don't want to actually try. And it's really kind of frustrating because you look at it and you're going, if you just done that, and I'm not talking a lot, if it just means an accordion band for an Oktoberfest, if it means that you've got steins available to sell, great, you're doing something different. What about authentic German beer? It took you 5 minutes. The problem is that way too many people hinder back and think good enough. You know, when we did the sports sales boot camp, now this was in San Francisco our first year, and this is in 2015. I'd never done it before. And, you know, it was at the Hilton Hotel in downtown San Francisco. And the difference was I had 2 techs that kept saying to me good enough was not good enough. And what I liked about that was every other room had issues. But the 2 techs that were in there made sure our issues in terms of microphone, in terms of everything, were solved. I'm not responsible for that. I can't handle that. But this, I got. Every single thing we're doing. And we had 19 speakers come up, 30 minutes apiece. We had 500 people in there. And guess what? Everybody felt that that room was perfect. They didn't like the rest of the rooms. And that's not on my 2 techs. But that's on whether or not the manager of the other techs really cared. See, the thing is, you can take care of one and have the rest of them fail. Because you only chose to have the good people at one place, right? You only had the people that cared, not just for their job or whether they made money, but the marketing effort is everybody. So while the 500 people that were in my room thought this place is awesome, this place did its job, the 2,000 people that are in the other rooms at the other functions are hearing sporadic, you know, stuff with their audio. You know, they had video that didn't work. You know, so you won some and you lost some. Does that really help your brand? Or does that kind of muddle your brand? You only made certain people happy, not everybody. So I'm a big advocate of using free resources. You can find, so there's a calendar system that's online, like Thirst and Talk. Use it. Go to it. There's the EDC. There's you know, Economic Development Council. There's all those things. If you're going to have an event, if you're going to have anything that you can do. You know, the amount of times that I have not seen most of you go to Thurston Chamber events that are free after hours where they actually have food and they have it once every Thursday night. Why not go there? Everyone says be a member of the chamber, but why not be a part of the activation part of the chamber? Why not go to one of the chamber luncheons that happen where you pay 35 bucks? For some reason, a $5 discount is a huge deal, so you can be a member. But even if you don't do that, you know, I have a friend that he'll go to events, but he'll sit off to the side. And he says, well, this didn't work for me. First question I go is, how many people did you meet? Well, I didn't have anybody come up to me. Well, what do we learn, Paul? Right? You have to go up to other people, right? I mean, he's a networking guy. That's the point. The idea that people have to come up to you, not the point. You have to come up to them and not belligerently come up to them and just puke out whatever you're going to talk about. How about you learn who they are? How about you care? But you find out if you can maybe use their service as much as they can use yours. Maybe you can tag team on something. I had a person that actually paid me. She's part of a tailgate company, and she actually paid me to go to a conference and actually shadowed me. And the problem that we had first day was the fact that I would have to stop her because she would vomit all over everybody, her sales pitch. I go, that's great, but how about you say hello? How about you actually meet the person? How many times have you guys had that? Some of you are older, you haven't been on dates in a while, but how many people tell you every emotional thing you've ever heard of in your life, and you're like, might be date 3 that you might want to get me invested, you know, just a little bit. Just saying, you know, way too often we spill our guts. We spill way too much to other people, and what happens? People go, whoa, I got enough issues in my life. And the problem is with, you know, selling something, if they automatically know that you don't care, the first thing they're going to do is tune you out. You know, I always like to make sure that I don't ask, you know, or tell anybody about what I'm doing. I always like to ask what they do. Because if I know what they do, I might find out more about it. I might be interested. Well, shoot, if I'm interested, after a while they got to end their little conversation and suddenly I might be interested. Just depends. Problem is nobody wants to do that because everyone feels they have no time. If you have no time for your customer, if you have no time to learn who they are, you've lost the battle. Invest time. Time is an investment. You don't go, and this is all dating. This is all finding out who these people are. You're dating your customer in a lot of ways. Don't do that literally, it's not a good sign. But, but at the same time, you're trying to find out who they are, what makes them tick, what do they like, why do they want to even talk to you, why are you interesting, why are they interesting, what do they do, what do they want, you know, and if you come from that idea, a lot of times you're going to be more open to selling, and it's not going to happen once. We talked about the different touch points. Everyone just wants to blast out an ad. How many people have bought Clue Jewelers in the last 2 weeks? I see their ads all over the place. No? She looked at each other. No, but I mean, like, their ads are all over the place. We should all buy it, right? Because we just saw the ads. It's not how stuff works. It has to be in the right frame of mind. It has to be something that you want to buy. Now, it's good to hear it. It's good to know it. But how many times do you have to be right there and prepared and want to do that way before? You know? The worst types of proposals I've ever seen have always come on sports courts. Literally. Oh, I'm not kidding. If you want to look at the Sacramento Kings, they had one of the worst. Guy proposes, guess what? She says no right there. Like he's even punching the mascot. What was the problem? He didn't ask. He didn't know. He didn't try. And I'm sure it was something that, you know, was probably far worse. Like it was probably the third date or the second date. He probably had never met the person. Whatever. But the point, maybe they've been fighting. But the point is, he didn't really know who his buyer was. I know that sounds funny, but it's true. Who is their buyer? You know, that person has to accept the idea that they're buying into something. And it's a simplistic model, but it makes a difference because you are marrying the person that you're going to. Because during that entire life cycle, you have to continue to service and make sure, you know, that person actually wants to invest in your product, not just once, but again. You're in real estate. The buyer that you have, the first one that you have, is not the buyer. It's what they tell everybody else who might buy from you that second time. They go, hey, I got a lady, she's going to help you out. That's a gold, right? Because then you know that top of mind, you're getting referrals. Problem is, everyone just tries to sell that person, not to sell them enough to where they want to talk about you to everybody else. We just talked about people with skin in the game. Skin in the game is them actually deciding to actually sell for you. Wow, hey, I got this person. She knows exactly her stuff. She actually saved me $10,000. I was going to actually pay this other thing, and she said, no, don't do that. I already know about that. Saved you from stuff that you would have otherwise bought, otherwise gotten screwed up. How many people do that? How many people go the extra mile, or how many people just kind of cart it off? Oh, hey, I sold you like it's retail. You know, great. Okay. Doesn't really help. It's all about developing your own cult. And it sounds weird. You know, why would you have your own cult? Everyone has their own cult. There's people that love you. People that think that you can do no wrong. You know, that doesn't mean that they're just going to buy all of your BS, but they'll buy enough of it to know that, you know, you stand with them, they stand with you. And if you don't have that, if you don't have those people that absolutely are passionate about you, you have nothing. Paul had his networking thing. He had several people that were willing to come up and speak on his behalf that knew him, that cared about him, that had dealt with him over the years, not just in a networking point of view, but knew who he was as a person. If you don't have that type of stuff, if you don't try to build that type of stuff, well, who are you? How many times have you seen the weird guy at the club? The guy that just kind of, I don't care what it is. I'm not talking even nightclub, but just in general. The weird person that tries to develop the rapport but has nobody that wants to speak for them. Nobody that wants to even engage with them. And they're talking to you, and they're trying to sell you on whatever. And you know within 10 minutes whether or not that person's kind of hinky or not, because they haven't really kind of developed that. And it doesn't mean that they've done anything wrong, but they're kind of weird because nobody has the idea of whether or not they've even kind of earned that kind of rapport that they have. What you do, how you act, that's where it changes. So you can't just rush up to people and say, oh, suddenly you need to buy my product. Great, I've heard that a million times. I've gotten screwed on a million products. Gotten screwed on a million things, but guess what? I'm not getting screwed this time. I'm waiting, I'm finding out who you are. You ever heard of this person before? What people say about you, what people think about you, what people refer you to matters. Microtargeting audiences is interesting. Everyone always thinks that selling sports is the easiest thing in the world. Let me be the first to tell you that it is the worst thing in the world. Everybody thinks it's the easiest because everyone goes, well, obviously, people just love sports. People just run to it. People think everything should be for free. You should always win. If you don't win, you suck. I don't want to be a part of it. the best thing that ever happened to me was working at Seattle University. Because when I showed up in 2006, and I remember the date, March 13th, 2006, it was the last basketball game they had, there were literally 17 people in the building, meaning parents weren't even showing up to their kids' basketball game. It's that bad. And everyone goes, well, we got this great product, we're going D1. Great, D1, but nobody wants to watch it. Because they focused only on sports fans. And so what we did was we actually decided that our target was not sports fans. We found people that had no issue with us. We actually found people who actually went to the campus, engaged in the campus, that had never been to a sporting event. If you went to a crowd feed, that's who we targeted. We said, hey, if you want to have a good time, that's who we want to have in our thing. And you know what's funny? Within 2 years, I had 1,000 people. And I'm not joking, you can actually look it up. 1,000 people in a gym that was only supposed to hold 1,000 people. Let's be honest, it had 1,600. I'm not kidding. So it had 1,600, and it had so many that the fire marshal tried to at one time shut us down. You've seen Old Connolly Center, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so we had standing room only behind our bench, behind the opposing bench. This was packed. We even had it to the point to where we called the timeout. Coach called the timeout halfway through our last game. We're in a moaning sound. We're like, what's the moaning sound? Here's the bleachers starting to buckle. Because we have them all from old Jesuit high school. Because, Jesuits don't pay full price for anything. They don't even pay half price. If Jesuits could ever have their way, you'd actually basically be as poor as they were. That's just the way they look. And I love them. But you have to be honest. The point is that we finally got lost in a last-second shot. Everybody cleared out. Look at the bleachers. They're kind of like this. Everyone's saying, oh, how horrible it is. I'm going, this is a good problem to have. 2 years ago, we didn't have anybody. And so our coach actually blames the crowd for our loss. Comes up to us and says, well, our players aren't used to this. They're not used to this big a crowd. So we thought about getting shirts that said, quiet please, so our team can concentrate. These are good problems to have. But they're about focusing on people that aren't part of your original audience. Because your original audience may have decided that you've broken the rules or that past groups have broken the rules. So instead, you need to focus on those people that actually care. So that's what we did. And then when I went to Eastern Washington University, first thing out of the gate was cutting away free tickets. Everyone goes, well, you need free tickets because that's how you get the people in there. No, because somebody who actually pays $150 for their season ticket shouldn't be sitting next to somebody that doesn't. Little case in point. After we cut out the tickets, we'd done all these great things, we had established it to where they were really successful. We had the red turf in, We sold out the stadium. I even had death threats from the state of Montana over it. I'm not kidding, because apparently you can't cut off tickets left and right. When we had our on sale for the first game against Montana, they actually broke the record for Elton John, apparently, of coming through, and they flooded the ticket office. The NCAA had reports and a bunch of other stuff. Stupid. One of the things that came out of it that was most critical and most interesting was after I left. And I went to UC Davis. And somebody had given 2 free passes to, after we'd cut out all of that stuff, 2 free passes down onto the field. And they had 2 people there, 2 women that obviously they thought, hey, whatever, cute, whatever. But those 2 women sat next to, or stood next to somebody that, was a big time donor. And they talked about how stupid that person was for actually donating. Think about that impact. When you bring free buyers in, they don't just, accept something for free. They actually tell people who bought how stupid they are. That's what free buyers are. They are toxic people. They are not people that actually help. They don't, just because you have a crowd of them does not mean you get them back. Groupon is a great example of this. Groupon has killed more businesses, especially small businesses, than anybody else. Write it down. Seriously. Anybody that goes to Groupon, I'm always amazed. How is it that you haven't gotten the message? These are the discount hunters. These are the worst people on earth. These are people that are never happy. They're the people that actually leave the negative reviews, because no matter what you do for them. But yet, everyone wants to go to Groupon. If really your price is 50% of what you're charging, then that's your price. That's what you're charging. This comes back to marketing. It seems like it doesn't, right? Because we're just supposed to talk about blasting out and making sure, but everything comes back to reputation. Everything comes back to what you see. Everything comes back to what you do. When we micro-target our audiences, how do we find those buyers? Who are we looking for? I found the people from the crowd feed. That's a micro-target. May not seem like it's a micro-target, but it is. So just because you have a wide net that you can charge to, I know that you had mentioned for real estate that you had said everybody. It's not everybody. So let's talk. So who is your buyer? Who are the people that you want? Is it Susie? Susie that's got 2 kids, decided that, not in a relationship right now, but, she's got a good enough job with the state. Is she looking to buy? Is she on her second home? Maybe she's a flipper. She's somebody that likes to go in and flip homes. You have to figure out who your buyer is. You have to put up an image of who your buyer is, why they're there, and that's going to actually help you decide who to market to, who to target. Because otherwise, you're in a room full of people that may or may not want to buy your stuff. And instead of you looking for Susie, and instead of you specializing on Susie, you're specializing on Floyd, the guy that ain't gonna buy anything. That doesn't really like houses, likes apartments, is a bachelor. It just depends. It matters who you're focused on. Way too often we focus on the people that are not best for what we're trying to buy. I wouldn't try to sell all of this stuff to Paul because he already knows it. I would be wasting my time. It doesn't mean Paul isn't important, but Paul is not the person that is going to do that stuff. I'm picking on Paul. But maybe Alan, I don't know. You've got your business expo. We should talk. You're not Susie. But at the same time, it depends on who you're talking to and who you're focusing your time on. Because those are the people that are actually going to buy your product. When I worked in radio, worked in a lot of different things. But KAYO here always used to have a little printout of who we were talking to. And the guy we were talking to, he did not look like he had a lot of money, but he was a respectable man. And he, like KAYO, today's biggest and yesterday's best. You're listening to KO. The point is, we knew who we were talking to. It didn't mean that the other people weren't important, but they weren't going to buy our product. And so if I can't look at that person and see who specifically they are and realize that they are the person that I'm supposed to be selling this to, whether it's the next song, whether it's the next ad, whether it's the next event, then I'm not doing it right. Who wants graphic design? You're graphic designer, right?
Bookkeeping.
Bookkeeping. You're bookkeeping. So is everybody just who you're trying to hit for bookkeeping?
No.
Or is it people that are maybe young entrepreneurs that don't know what they don't know about bookkeeping, that are scared out of their mind because for the first time they're now getting a tax bill? If that's who you're talking to, then why aren't you at every young professional thing? Why aren't you with them and it's talking about, wow, you can get in real trouble if you don't know how to make your tax assessments right? Great example of that. There are things that open your eyes, and usually it's a threat, a gun to your head. Things you didn't realize that could happen. A lot of people think, oh, taxes, big deal, whatever, and then all of a sudden they get that notice from the IRS. Yeah, I got one over $2. That was interesting. And they're going to seize my stuff over $2. I was like, oh, okay. The point is, it's avoiding just standard networking. It's actually looking at who you're trying to. This is the other part of it. Once you start to focus on that, it means you have to actually work. You cannot just stop. And that's one of the things. I'll always outwork everybody. I'm not trying to brag. I will literally outwork everybody. If you're going to tell me that we're in a competition, I will literally call more people than you. I will literally find more people than you, but I will find them specific to who I'm trying to actually sell to. You can go into every kind of thing and say, hey, I networked and I got a bunch of cards. Doesn't mean anything to me. Are those the people that you actually want to talk to? Are those the people that actually have what you want? Just depends. One of the things I think also doesn't come enough is how you frame your stories. One of the challenges that I think a lot of people have is they get into these conversations and they never have a point. I'm not just trying to be critical. I come up with this stuff on purpose so we can talk about it. But, I always have 10 stories ready to go. I told you one of them with the Seattle U thing. I can tell you 5 more right off the bat. I can tell you about Australia, where they had my podcast and they had me come out, and I showed up, walked out on stage and found out I was Elvis. Didn't know that, because guess what? That's all they had been told to listen to, so they thought I was bigger than I was, whereas now I have a small audience. But, it's interesting, right? It's like, whoa. So but these stories, they help you come to an idea of what you're trying to get across. What are you trying to get across when you're selling real estate? Trying to sell examples. Sell me on an example of why I should care, why I should want to be a part of it. You know what? If you don't really look at your, the pipes underneath, if you don't really do a good assessment of your house, if you try to sell it, boy, I had this one story, and this person didn't even do any of that, and they went to me, and they just didn't even tell me the right stuff. Wow, the person that tried to buy it, they got screwed. We don't want that to happen. So I always check. I always make sure. You know what happens there? You're selling them on yourself without telling them, that you're just buy my stuff. You're trying to give them a framework, beginning, middle, end. Jack and Jill went up the hill, get a barrel of water. One fell down, the other one drowned. What, right? It's all beginning, middle, end. I can't even do the entire beginning, middle, end of Jack and Jill, but it's the point. It's all about story arc, and it's about understanding. I'm a big person on giving you way more value than probably, so, I'll keep rambling for a while, but one of the things that I think is important is really kind of understanding that you are paid to care. So you are not understanding how somebody who is not paid to care. You're the customer right now, you're the hunter. It's amazing how you feel about it. As Paul leaves. But anyway, if you look at it, right, like, you're not paid at this point. You're kind of hoping to learn something. You're kind of hoping to see that it all comes to an arc. But at the same time, you're not really, you don't really have to market this. But you can tell me everything that's probably wrong with this, right? Everything that I could have marketed better. That's because you're outside of the bubble. You're outside of the bubble, and you can understand what I can't understand. That's the whole point, whether it's bookkeeping. I guarantee you that if I sat down, I could tell you 50 ways that you probably haven't thought about doing bookkeeping. But that's because I don't live inside that bubble. That's why you need other people that can actually tell you what's not wrong with your product, but how you can market it better. Who you want to chat with, who you want to be with, and where buyers are looking. It's always about pulling back the words. So I always am a big believer in getting stuff done in advance. I know a lot of people wait till the last minute. There's always more stuff that you can do. Always enough stuff that you kind of, see the idea of kind of putting it forward. So if you've got content, let's say this is your big thing, content. You want to put content out there, you want people to read your content and invest in you online. You don't put it out one at a time. Problem is, way too many people do that. They put it out one at a time, and then guess what? Life happens. They can't keep up with it. You have to continue to have content, continue to have information done in advance that actually makes a point, that actually has a checklist, you check it twice, everything else. And really, it's the idea of what's time worth to you. You know, if you take 10 minutes a day, it's 310 minutes a month. It's quite a bit of time if you think about it. But you don't think about it that way because everyone wants to look at Netflix, or everyone wants to look at, you know, Game of Thrones. You know, really those things, they're not really there to do anything but pacify you at a certain amount of time. You have to decide whether or not you're going to invest in your business. And if you're going to invest in your business, really that comes down to the idea of not stopping and taking that extra time. You know, I had a person that told me a day how they had to do all these things. I said, so when are you getting them done? Well, maybe next week, week after. I said, well, why don't you put down a list and check them off, and why don't you do them right now? I mean, they were simple things. They weren't even complex. Why don't, you're sitting here talking to me about it. Take you 5 minutes. Well, I'll get them done. No. Once you do that, you know what happens? None of them get done. And then, by the way, I'm not talking like complex things. I'm not talking like huge things that, you know, take gobs of hours of time. But if there are smaller little things that you can get them done now. It doesn't take that much. You know, networking. Networking is always an interesting one. I talk to you about the young professionals, right? You know what also happens? Pool stagnation. Everyone, after a while, you start getting into a reunion with all your other buddies that you've met 50 times. I don't know if you've had that experience, but it's pretty, you know, after a while you're like, well, shoot, I'm just showing up and it's the same people, you know, the Thurston Chamber, the South Sound Chamber. That means you have to move. You know, if you are seeing the same people over and over again and you've had those conversations, you have to make it to where you're going to see other people. Otherwise, it's just, you know, that's just kind of dirty water after a while. You know, you're not really focusing on anybody else. You're not meeting anybody else. You know, and one of the things that I would always recommend is if you are in any of these networking pools, why aren't you the expert? You should be the person that knows this stuff. If you're the real estate person, how about you make sure that you're the real estate person that knows the specific thing that everybody has to talk to you about? Because I guarantee you there's specific things that you know about real estate that I do not. I had a person blow my mind on cars. I did not know that you could drive off the lot without insurance. Like there was this carryover thing, and she like shocked me with it. And I was like, why aren't you that person? Because, you know, you would have saved me X amount of money the next time I bought a car. I didn't think of it that way. You should, you're the expert at it. Well, I only have 4 years of car experience. 4 years more than I got. You know, way too often we belittle ourselves thinking that, you know, our experience is not expertise. Your experience is what you have. I only have experience in like sports marketing and sales and certain things, but I guarantee you that I'm not going to let anybody else tell me I'm not an expert in it. You know, because you have to. Otherwise, you're just like a person that kind of knows stuff that nobody actually kind of refines. One of the things I would do is talk about a 52-week strategy. This is where we get into content creation or whatever we're doing. So let's say you want to put out a blog post. You want to put out something. I want you to put 52 weeks, so 52 lines, 1 line per subject, and it's on your expertise. Tell me what's important on this subject that you're selling and make sure that it's important to the person that's reading it. This seems weird, right? You know, like why 52 lines? Well, that's 1 a week, right? 400 words. You know, it does not have to be the best English. It can be the Queen's English, you know, great. You can have somebody look it over. You can have somebody edit it. You now have 52 blog posts before you begin. And once you release one once a month, and then, by the way, this could be video. This could be audio. Nobody knows the difference of whether or not it, I mean, if you put out something that's like video where it's snowing and it's in the middle of summer, they're going to know that you filmed it when you filmed it. But that's about it, right? But you don't have to also have, you know, 5 hours worth of content per thing. You have 30 seconds. People got 30 seconds for you. They don't got 2 hours, right? I mean, you see the Joe Rogans, you see those podcasts. they're getting paid to do that. They're rambling on at a certain point, like I am. But it is what it is. The point is, you're not seeing 52 of these things registered out, right? You're only seeing these ones that were recorded. The difference is if you're trying to sell a product and you're actually trying to sell real estate, tell me exactly why I'm interested in real estate. Tell me what matters when it comes to bookkeeping. All of the different variances. And you can keep the names of every little thing that's bad, private, but really tell me what the problems are. There are things I didn't even know, like I was like, wow, okay. That's why I have a bookkeeper. Because I learned, I lived in the People's Republic of California. I lived in the worst place on earth for taxes. Oh no, so I went down there 2012. This is a great great accounting story. Go down there 2012. One of the first things, I get a conference, goes, hey, we're local. How about we pay you $400 and you come speak? Great, cool. Get a $400 check. All of a sudden I get a thing from the state of California going, guess what? You need to form an LLC. That's outside income. Okay, I formed the LLC. Then I get a notice saying, you need to pay $800 to the franchise fee for California. Huh? Now I'm out, what, 800 and X amount of dollars, right? So I go to a bookkeeper, or as a tax assessor, or tax instigator, whatever. Great guy. He goes, hey, you don't actually have to pay the $800. They just don't tell you that. They want to see if you'll pay it. Oh, so I'm stupid. And then I got money back. But the point is, that's a story, right? That's a horror story. But it comes to the idea of now, this is why you don't do that stuff. This is why you don't try to do it on your own. And QuickBooks ain't going to solve it, right? Problem is, people aren't telling those stories. Real estate, how to buy real estate correctly, how to find out that the people you're buying from aren't going to skate on you, aren't going to screw you. All those things that they don't tell you about. I always think of that movie Moving with Richard Pryor, where he walks through the house with them and they say, oh, we're taking this with us. He thinks they're joking, he comes back and even the pool's gone and all the insulation's ripped out. Oh, hey, we literally said that we were taking it with us. Well, it's a horror story, but it's true. And before you release even one of the lines, one of the blog posts, one of the information, have another one to replace it. And I guarantee you, if you do this, what's going to happen, what's going to change, is that you're going to actually have enough content that when all of a sudden the friend gets sick, the mother gets sick, the family issue, you now have 3 weeks to where you don't have to worry. I have a guy does Floorball Guru. You've never even heard of floorball, but he loves the sport. His name's David. I started him on this. You know what? He already has 2019 already done. The point is that anytime he has an issue, whether it's at work, whether it's at whatever, he has all of that done, set, in motion. And he only sends out to about 900 people. You're not one of the 900 because you're not interested in floorball. But that's the thing. You don't want to send out to just about everybody. You want to send out to the people that are buyers, that are following along, that become part of your cult, that become part of the things that you want them to convey, and go, wow, okay, this is that long game play. Instead of just trying to get the quick buck, instead of trying to do the hype marketing part of it, is that you're creating hype continually with these people. You're not just doing it for one bit of stuff. You're doing it to where they're consistently coming back. And they're consistently telling others, wow, you've got to get on that bookkeeping email list. Have you ever seen that email? I mean, that email's great. It tells me they sing it once a week. I didn't even know about it. Did you even know about that? It's amazing. Networking. I never even knew that there were all these people that network together. Did you hear about this story? She actually grew her business within 5 weeks, 5 months, because she had all these connections that were kind of built for her because she was able to go in this networking club. And this networking club did all this stuff. Seems like a great thing. God, now there's personal stories. I guarantee if you took each one of your one of your clients, that do your networking, had them each write 5 stories on why they like it, you change up. I see Sarah Hendry's stuff all the time, right? The video? Yeah. Why do you think that is? Because it sells to me. It's somebody I know. It makes it to where, hey, this is a person I know. Michael Jameson, same one. We're not going to get into, a little bit of inside baseball, but I'm having fun. It's about being, in a war with a plan. Often, we don't think of it like a war, but you're in a war for somebody's mind. You're in a war for, if you're marketing, you're consistently in a war. If I actually took you right now and I said, guess what, we're off to war, and I put a helmet on you and I gave you a gun and shipped you right off towards the front, how would you feel? Each of you, seriously. You'd feel like, what the hell is going on? Like, well, I mean, I didn't know we were at war with Tumwater, but, you know, like, but at the same time, you'd feel like, I don't know what the heck's going on. This is crazy. And you'd probably die or get shot or scream, because everybody would do that, right? When you're at marketing, you need a consistent plan. You need to consistently go after it. You need a battle plan. It doesn't mean just 5 minutes and you roll it out. This is why a business plan works. There's a reason, and by the way, this is one of the big traps that you see with small businesses around here. Guaranteed, go up tonight to any restaurant or any kind of small retail, I will bet you $1. I want you to ask the owner, what's your business plan? Well, I got it in my head. Well, how's that working? So if you die or you just decide you don't know what's going on, that's it. I mean, I'm not talking about anything big, but just a business plan, a marketing plan, something. You know, the reason they call it avant-garde theater, you know, when they have a little theater that, you know, it means you can only sell 9 seats at a 1,000-seat theater. Nobody wants to buy your stuff, right? It's because they didn't have a plan. They don't know who they're talking to. They think everybody is stupid for not actually buying in. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever experienced that type of stuff, but they almost belittle the crowd. Well, they're stupid. They didn't get it. No, you didn't get who they should have been. You know, maybe you should have had a 50-seat theater. Maybe you should have had 5 seats. Maybe you shouldn't have done that play until you had figured out who your audience is. I get creativity, but you have to get it, and when you get into the marketing aspect, that's where it changes. And it's not just on social media. Way too often we're now focused on the idea that social media is, you know, just the only way to do things. Well, social media, great. But if your folks aren't even, you know, aware of it, I mean, there are many people that, you know, don't even have social media. They don't know what you're talking about. So you have to, I mean, if everyone here wants to run for office, you still have to go to doorbells. It doesn't matter how much geofencing you hit people's cell phones and all the great stuff that you can do, but a lot of times you have to go to their, you know, their doors. A lot of times you have to go to places where, like a forum, where they want to meet, because you're not otherwise going to hit them. And the idea of social media is just the thing because everyone pays attention to it. They pay attention to it, but if that's the only thing, they don't really do it. You mentioned the fact about, you know, that person named Donald. It's interesting. Everyone likes to talk about the social media part. They forget that he also had this thing where he met in giant arenas. You know, people felt they had a personal connection to whatever it was. I'm not even on the train. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, you can't just think it's one thing. It's all of those things. It's all of those things having skin in the game. People being passionate about something that they don't even get rewarded from. That's where, when you talk about social media as being the end-all answer, you can spend money to the oblivion. It's like having billboard ads. Doesn't mean you've won. Doesn't mean you have more stuff. It means you have more billboards. I'm always amazed how many people don't want to build up an audience. They think it should just happen overnight. You know, oh, okay. You know, sometimes they'll even buy likes. They'll buy followers. I don't know if you've seen that stuff. They'll go to Fiverr. Great. You want to spend $500 on followers that don't care. Oh, I'm going to impress all these people. It's not going to happen. People know how to tune you out. People know it's real. And the idea that somehow you're just going to buy all this stuff, you know, a brand takes a long time to build up. And it can actually be destroyed pretty quickly. Because a lot of people, you know, unfortunately try to go empty calorie. You know, if you try to go to the gym, and you only go once, you say, I did it. Went to the gym. I even bought my gym membership. Doesn't mean anything. You know, you've got to consistently go back. You've got to consistently diet. You've got to consistently do things, right? And I know some of these analogies are getting out of marketing, but they're really about training yourself towards the idea that you're doing something constantly, that you want to be a part of it, instead of deciding that last minute, oh, I'm just going to build up an audience. Because if anybody could just build up an audience, they would. You know, there's a difference between the band Kiss and you. You know, that has 40 years of them doing exactly what they think their audience wants. Make no mistake, that's complete marketing, same as the Beatles. Beatles are crap. They're the same audience again. It's consistently hitting exactly what they think people want to hear because they know they've tested out their audience. You want to see avant-garde stuff? Great, they've got 5 people that follow. That's unfortunately the case. And then unfortunately people go, oh wow, they're the big thing. Are they? Are they that band in LA that lied? You know, they might be. It's easy to buy a following. It's harder to create a believable brand. One of the issues that I always find interesting though on social media is how few people take themselves seriously enough on how they mine new content and new people to actually follow and get interested. If you take a photo with one of our mascots, we actually try to find you online and photo tag you. You know, we make sure that you see that photo. We make sure that you're sharing that photo off of ours. Because guess what? Now that's how we build it. That's how we got 300 followers. Now we didn't go 5,000 followers, but guess what? I didn't think we were going to do that in year 1. And even some of those followers, you got to kind of see, are they real, are they trolls, are they what you want? But Facebook page invites. If you actually look at, you know, there's different software out there that you can buy, Chrome stuff. And I actually made quite a bit of money off of politicians doing this because they don't know how to do it. So guess what? I'm an expert. So I'll reveal it now. It cost me $29 to get a Chrome thing for an extension that actually, what it does is it goes through on your Facebook page, and anybody who likes a photo, anybody that likes a comment, anybody that likes, you know, any of the stuff that doesn't actually like the page, it will go through and send them an invite. Pretty simple. Guess what? There are several politicians that didn't know how to do it. I became an expert at it. Took me 10 minutes, $29, crafted several times. If you want to build up your stuff with people that actually like your product already, that haven't just liked the page, that's the best way to do it, and that is still micro-targeting. That doesn't mean that they're fully invested in they're just going to recommend you tomorrow, but at least it's a thought. You know, one of the things I would look at, especially for accounting, Facebook group. I'd join that group. How to save me money. How to look at different things that I didn't know. Ask the expert. What do I do when I have like 4 companies that I've started that are all sole proprietorships? Or one that's 2 that are LLCs that I got to join with 2 other people. How do I do that? How do I make sure that those people understand that this is important to pay for? Because, yeah, you'll get some tire kickers, but you'll also get people that go, I never knew that. Kelsey Cook, who's a comedian, she and Taylor Tomlinson and Delaney Fisher, they're comedians out of LA. And I only know Kelsey Cook. I met her once, and I've been on her Facebook. Great comedian. She travels the country, but they started podcasts. And they actually started a group. I'm part of that group. It's called the Self-Helpless Podcast. And it talks about, like, you know, things that women are going through predominantly. It's a pretty good group. They have built that up to 1,800 followers. And I'm talking within 2 or 3 years. Now, these are people they invited in, people that had issues that were with birth control, things that you wouldn't think of. Maybe some dating, maybe some mental health issues. But here's the thing. They're not trying to sell anything. They're trying to help people. You know what's funny? They probably actually have a more stronger following for their podcast and for their live, you know, comedy because of the fact those people feel personally connected to them. So if you're going to build an audience and you're going to, and here's what's great about it. The followers actually usually comment into the group. Usually not the, you know, the people that are actually, you know, the mainstay folks, Kelsey, Taylor, and Delaney. They're not mainly doing it. I mean, they kind of look at it, maybe they respond. But it's mainly that group, those people that feel personally invested skin in the game. I'm not saying that they're going to sell birth control products tomorrow. That's not the point. But the point is they created a deeper connection with their audiences to where people actually say, well, this person helped me, or this person was part of a group that I was part of, and I really feel connected to them. Suddenly they're coming to their shows. Suddenly they want to be a part of that. That's where you can actually establish a Facebook group that actually does some good, but it, you know, really builds it to where people go, wow, I really like that person. I really want to be a part of it. Because I'll tell you, a lot of times your product is not what I buy. It's the fact I know you. The fact I know who you are and, you know, what you're going to do. you know, I can find stuff anywhere. I can find stuff in China. I don't necessarily need, I can buy real estate online. Why would I buy from you? I like you. A lot of that comes from it. It's about having those meaningful conversations. You know, one of the things that I always think is interesting is how many times people actually hurt themselves online. How many decide that they really want to talk about politics on their Facebook? And they really want to talk about how this group over here is just causing all these problems, and they want to almost troll, right? And they want to say divisive things. There are some people that I consider close personal friends that say the most vile things, you know, and it's really hard for me because I consider them friends, but they say these stupid things because they don't care. Hey, it's my opinion. Great. You know what's not going to happen? I'm never going to buy from you. I know a person that actually sells a product that I would buy tomorrow and the next day, but that person has such vile, trollish views and just says such horrible things. Even though I like that person offline, I never buy from that person. And these people can say it's their opinion, but every single thing you do, that's part of your brand. You know, I mean, look, it's easy to kind of say trigger moments that everyone would get upset about. You could say something racist, say something sexist. I could say that right now, just completely kill any kind of brand I have, whether it's social, online or not. You know what I mean? Like that sort of stuff is pretty easy. But that minor toxic stuff, the stuff that you do, the stuff that you say, even if it's not technically affiliated with you, but it's like, say you two are in a relationship and you decide that you hate each other, right? And you're saying all this horrible stuff to each other and you're getting divorced. And you say all this stuff online, and one of you beat up the other person or punched a kid or said these horrible things, and you post all of this stuff online, I don't care. You're now diminished both of your brands and your business. I don't care if it's not affiliated with your business. I don't care if, guess what? You know, we're not tied to the business. If I know that you're representing that, it changes how I feel about you. Sorry for your breakup. Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, right? You know, that's one of the challenges. Way too often we think that there's a separation that there is not. And when I have those, I kind of feel disappointed for the person because the person doesn't realize that they're doing it. And even I get caught into conversations. I get it. You know, sometimes, and you can see when somebody's just like trying to find a way to, you know, really hinder you. And my conversation is that if you really feel that way, why don't you create a fake account where people don't know it's you? At least then you can do all of your vile stuff. I don't know why you decide to do it. It is what it is. But stop turning off buyers. Have an actual strategy. You know, actually know where your customers live. Your customers might be the same people affiliated with you. You know what's funny is if I actually on my personal Facebook decided right now to say something, you know, bigoted, sexist, whatever, I'm not just worried about you. I actually have high-level folks that are on my social media. Folks that I know from the sports industry that I've known for quite a few years. I think one of them is probably, I think Scott O'Neill runs the 76ers. And I'm only throwing them out not to brag, but I'm saying, you know, those have repercussions. Or they can see it. Or Paige Ferruget, who's the SVP of the Texas Rangers. I know she's on my thing. She always shares pictures of her kids. But here's the thing. How are they going to look at me? Am I going to have a job? You know, and really, how did that win for me? Oh, it's not part of my own business. It doesn't matter. It's how they want to associate with you or don't want to associate with you. And to me, that's one of the things that I think way too many people are forgetting. Your bookkeeping business is based on the fact whether people like you, but also think whether you're a bigot, a sexist, you know, a jerk, somebody that would beat up an old person, I don't know. Well, you know, I mean, all of those things, as we talked about, gossip comes at warp speed. Unfortunately, people don't look along those lines. You know, we talked about where buyers are. What do? What do they consume? Your buyers, Susie, you know, where does she look at? What does she do? She's a state worker? If she's a state worker, what part of the state does she work at? Does she work at the Department of Transportation? What does her workday look like? Where is she going? Point A, point B. If you look at that and you start to tune it, you're going to start to see where you are. Maybe that means that Susie and Susie's like her. Maybe that means you need to have a donut day. You know, just drop in. We used to do this all the time with tickets. Drop in with a mascot, with coffee, a little traveler from Starbucks, and donuts. Guess what? We're going to meet some people that Susie knows. Because you know what? We might be able to find other people like Susie that Susie likes and Susie's going to tell people about. Problem is way too many people don't think that way. You know, they're thinking, oh, it's 20 bucks for coffee. It's 20 bucks for you to network with people you never met before that are now in kind of a thing of going, wow, this person's pretty nice. They brought me coffee. How many people do coffee drops to the state offices? It seems to me like that'd be a great place if I was trying to find, you know, or small businesses that are trying to find, hey, I want to, you know, show up with, we do our Friday coffee drop. Where's your business? How do we get your folks involved? Really? Free coffee? Who's going to turn down that? Nobody. Oh, shoot. And guess what? We're going to take photos of it. We're going to tag everybody in those photos. We're going to make sure everybody knows. This is part of marketing. Continual. You're not hitting where everybody else is hitting. You're hitting them where they ain't. The problem is that way too many people try to do the same old things, and then they wonder why it doesn't happen. One of the things that was really cool about you know, the Elks Lunch thing that even caught me, you know, I'm supposedly this expert, right? When they did that Oktoberfest, they went out and hit the senior news. I didn't even know about that. Like Mix 96. People, hey, let's take our elderly. Let's take mom to this. Let's take dad to this. I started noticing the customers that they had there. Sometimes there were people that I wouldn't have even thought of. I always thought Thurston Talk or the Olympian. But here were people that, you know, wow, this is a great, you know, little shindig for them. They have their German heritage, or maybe they're just out with their family, or, you know, they're experiencing. That's the thing is, I don't know it all. So you have to start to look at different platforms. Who are you trying to reach? Senior news might not work for you. Senior news might actually work for you, but in a different way. Hey, you're trying to offset your house. You want to look at how to offset your house so you can go into the retirement community that's, you know, building on it, you know, near the old Albertsons. That's where you want to focus. You're continually hunting. You know, I think being their only option is a great thing, but you have to kind of make that to where they've decided that you're their only option, because they only know you. They don't know somebody else, you know, and that's because you're helping them all the time. You're helping them because you care. Problem is way too many people go, oh, there's also this person over there, you know. No, don't be telling other people. Fight for it. Make sure that you understand who cares, why they care, and be a part of it. You know, if you're the marketing guy, you know, you're doing all this marketing stuff, right? And you've helped, what is it, you know, these oil change places or whatever it is. Then I would make sure that every oil change place, they're calling going, hey, we'd like to recommend you as well. You know, what about the small auto dealer things that happen? There's little auto dealer meetings. That's the only place you're going to see those guys. Why not go there? Go, hey, we're already solving this problem for this guy. Why aren't we solving this for you? You're their only option. You're the only person that's talked to them. Guaranteed the only other people selling that service, you know, your service, probably popped in once. Probably don't go where they live. You know, go to the German car service. Go to the other ones. You know, it's always about what's important to the buyer, but I also want to think about this. It's also what's important to the platform. Way too often we don't think of what's important to the platform. So right now, Facebook Live, right? I'm doing live. That's important to Facebook right now. That's why it's kicking up in their feed. That's why 10%, 20% more are going to see this video, whether they pass on it or not, than normal. Because Facebook Live, Facebook cares about. So you have to understand what's important to that platform, whether it's a billboard. What's important to that platform? Where do they want to go? Social media is one thing, but also radio. What's important to radio? Radio is always like the morning zoo, right? It's always the afternoon drive. Nobody cares in the midday, right? Right? I don't know, but you know what I'm saying. Like, yeah. It's always about what's important to the platform, because otherwise, if you're not doing what's important to the platform, you're kind of just spending money and throwing it back. I always like the idea of hashtag narratives, and that doesn't mean 30 hashtags. I don't know if you've experienced those 30 hashtags that seem like an endless sea. So with Andrew Barkus, with Dan Griffey, with Drew McEwen, they're all representatives, we came up with hashtag narratives, who they are, 8 to 10 characters. Andrew Barkus is community driven, a little bigger than 8 to 10, but still, you want to be embedded in the community, you want to be the community driven, that's his. Doesn't matter if somebody else uses it, that's what he does, and every single thing that he puts out is provable to community driven. Dan Griffey is in your corner. Dan Griffey doesn't care if you didn't vote for him. If he's your advocate, he's coming, right? So if you need an advocate, he's there. He didn't care if you voted for him, he's in your corner. Drew McEwen, he's got energy. Get on board. These are how you can build your hashtags. These are how you can build your narratives. And you don't really have to explain very much. You can do it in the about part of like a Facebook, page. But really, it should be who you are. Tax queen, right? Solve problems. Whatever it is. And this doesn't mean in 5 seconds, right? But it means, realistically, you have to be the person. You're the repo expert. You're the real estate expert. However that is, you need to specialize in one thing to where people after a while start calling you that, because they start believing that that's who you are, and that's because you can solve that one problem. You're not going to solve every problem for me, but if you can really solve that problem, small business CPA, whatever that is, CPA by night, all-star by day. I don't know, but I actually talked to my friend about this because they do childcare. She goes, I get kids all over, whatever. She goes, I'm the nanny expert. Great, that's what you are. If I need somebody, I'm going to call the nanny expert, or I'm going to use the nanny expert. I'm not going to call the nanny kind of beginner, right? Because kids, they don't handle the nanny very well, right? Whether or not you're doing anything, online or basic, any of your marketing needs to be considered a wedding. We talked about marrying, but it needs to be a wedding. A wedding planner plans out photographer for a wedding. How hard is it to get a wedding photographer, right? It's like a year out. You don't mess around, right? You don't have all this time to decide whether, sorry. I mean, and I know this is, kind of written more to the female audience, but I mean, there are guys that have certain things that they don't do. Season tickets. You don't get your season tickets now, you're done. Right, Alan? Right? They're making you commit way before the season's even done. And if you don't, there are 10 more people that want that, and you're done. Everything you do is planned out like a wedding. You are planning it out. We actually got shocked, some of our folks at the Gateway Rotary's Brats, Brews, and Bands. We sold out at probably 1,600, 1,700 people. We had double the audience, and about a week later we put out that in 2019, September 7th, that we were going to have the next thing. We actually had people online going, I can't believe this, why are you posting this early? Plan ahead, because it's easier once I've got you planned ahead to guarantee that you'll be there. And guess what? We had 30 people that signed up. Ain't 30 people in this audience. It just matters. Everything. Be the first thing that they think of before they decide hunting season, before somebody else has a wedding, because it's a Saturday, before somebody has college football. Be the one thing that they can't do without, because you've set it ahead. And I guarantee you, by the way, you're going to have conflicts. You're going to have things that come up that people are going to decide are conflicts. But if you can get them to actually buy the tickets, if you can get them to guarantee, you have the money even if they don't show up. I know that's kind of weird because everyone goes, well, they didn't show up. You made your commitment, you showed up. It's not your fault if they didn't. So one of the things that always kind of gets me, and we see this a lot, is it's for charity. These events, it's for charity. Great, there's tons of charities out there. I have nothing against charities. If we did that with the Brats, Brews, and Bands, nobody's going to show up. That's not why people show up. People show up to drink, people show up to have a good time, listen to great music, hang out with their friends. Doesn't matter that 60,000 goes to charity. That's great, not belittling it, but that's not why people buy it. That's not why people give you extra money. They give you extra money because they're partying, they're drinking, whatever. And if you don't solve that, you're just like every other event that goes out there. every other thing that goes out here. Charities, there's like 2,500 nonprofits in this county. You know, for the rest of the state combined, there's not even that amount of nonprofits available. We have more charities than you could possibly deal with, and they all have events. I mentioned the Lacey Lights Festival. You know what happened last night? 3 other events, and I saw about it on social media. It's like, so none of these people planned ahead for the big event, which had everybody down in Huntermore Park, over 4,000 people, right? And they're all doing this thing. And there's other people getting awards over here, some other thing. Across the street, there at the EDC thing, there was an awards function. At the same time, I was like, does nobody plan this? You know, see, that's the thing. You can assume that charity is going to solve your event thing. Oh, we're going to have a charity event. There's tons of charities. There's tons of events. You have to get yours out in front ahead of time. Perfect. Because if you don't, it's not going to happen. And that's where marketing domination comes from. Being everywhere at all times. Continually driving the opinion. Being the only option. Being the thing that everybody has to experience. Because if you aren't, you then become that secondary event. Well, everyone else is on the parade of the Lacey Light Show going, hey! Then all of a sudden you go, oh, some lady I know got an award. I was like shocked. I was like, oh, okay, I would have been at that. But I didn't know about that. I didn't know that that conflicted. And, you know, it really comes to the idea of understanding who you are. So we're going to have a product test. I'm going to come up with one right now. And this is part of the idea of knowing, you know, really how things can get branded in your mind. I'm going to come up with an applesauce company. So, is it okay to ask you? Okay. I'm going to name it Tide Applesauce. You going to eat it?
No.
Okay. What about Pennzoil? What about Pennzoil applesauce?
No.
Why not?
Well, the oil that goes in the car
It's not oil in the applesauce.
was the first thing I think of.
Right? So if I look at what, Crest applesauce, would you eat it?
No.
Why?
Is it minty?
See, that's the thing. We've already associated certain things because of the brands and the marketing that we've put in. Whether or not your bookkeeping service is great, if it associates with something that is against your marketing, you've already lost. So you need to make sure that your marketing and your brand and everything that you do is not associated with something else. So if it's Apex Bookkeeping, that may sound like a great name, and you may have the name thing, but Apex makes me sound like something else, right? Yeah.
Can I go to, I bought an IT business back in March. The name of it was just hard to say, hard to remember.
Okay.
Northwest, I still don't remember what it was.
What is it now?
An SIP.
Okay.
Easy to remember.
Yeah.
Doesn't bring up any negative associations like you were talking about.
Yeah. It's
That
not
was the whole
Crest.
idea. I wanted to be easy to remember, and oh, sounds like you know.
Yeah, and that's the point, right? You're an expert, but you're also not associating it with something
Right.
that makes it. And by the way, the convoluted names,
Yeah.
like I don't get like those. Like, yeah, I wonder why I didn't make business, because nobody thought of you as the, you know, they thought of Northwest blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Great you have an entire essay, right? Yeah, small, compact, make me care, but also make the message smaller, right? That's why it's called hype marketing, not, you know, the transitional social media marketing of blah, 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 blah. I know that works in college because you're forced to take those courses. That doesn't mean that's right. So I think that's a smart move. It's advanced, makes me care, makes me know what it's about. I don't know, are you IT too? Yeah, so there you go. But so she's a great maker. But the point is that it's not something that also has kind of adhered to another brand. How many times do they kind of use, like, you know, some type of feature that, you know, quality, blah blah blah. Is quality really, you know? Are you sure about that? You know, I mean, what makes it to where your brand is something that's tantamount to you? You know, the other thing I would also suggest is the idea of, whether it's retail or whatever, limit your supply. I know that sounds weird, but there's only one of you. And so if there's only one of you or two of you, There's only so many things you can do. So limit your supply. We're always sold out. Pappy Van Winkle, shitty whiskey. Shitty whiskey. But guess what? It sells out. You know why? Because they only make a certain amount. And there's way more people that want it compared to actual people that, that don't know anything about it. Do you know it sells for $1,000 a shot? If you go down to the south, $1,000 a shot. Not worth it. But here's the thing. People haven't had Pappy. Ooh, I've got to experience it. Because once something is like kind of taken away from you, suddenly it's something you want. And so you have to kind of assume, wow, advanced IT, you have so many clients, but you have the best clients and you're only going to service them. And that's where you raise maybe your price by 20% because you're locked in. Don't be available to everybody. Everybody doesn't need you. Everybody can't have you. Only have a certain amount that have you. That's part of marketing too. Wow, I hear that guys at advanced IT, they're really tough to get only because they're servicing all these clients, but they're like the top end. Like here's the thing, can I get a Lexus like I can get a Ford? No way, right? A Lexus is I guarantee you they're made the same way. It's just they limit the supply. So why not limit the supply? If you're the best bookkeeper out there and you're for young entrepreneurs and you're for whatever, are you going to take more than 20 clients or whatever that you can afford, that like you need? And if so, if you're only going to take those 20, charge them more. And then say, sorry, I'm sold out. Bookkeepers don't say that enough. Bookkeepers keep taking on everybody, and then they've got always extensions. Always these creative extensions. And they get less money out of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then what happens the next year? Everyone goes, I'll go H&R Block. Because I had that and it took forever and I felt like I didn't get my service. So if you want to service my business, you're not doing extensions unless it's like a dire thing, but you're focused on me. It's all about setting the tone. Simplify the message. Wow, really great. Understands who they are, understands what they are. Look, I'm going to use the IT service because I know they're the best. And once I get in that thing, everyone see the soup Nazi? The episode, right? What was the thing that we learned about the soup Nazi? If you didn't order your soup right away, what happened? No soup for you, out. Done. We're not going to have dilly-dally. You may think that that's not a marketing thing. That is a marketing technique. Guess what? If you look at the amount of soup that, even on that episode, I know it's a joke, but if you look at the amount of soup they probably did compared to somebody else that's a competitor, I know it's a sitcom, but still, think about it. They probably moved way more volume. No chit-chat. There you go. There's your cash. Move it through. You don't have to be that brutal, but at the same time, you do have to think about it from the idea of there is more of a simplification of what you're going to get, and you're going to get the best soup. We're going to make sure, but you're going to do it through our tone. You're not going to be sitting there waiting for other people to kind of, decide. That's one of the things that always gets me. John Panette, who's a comedian, he's passed away, but he used to talk about how he'd stand in line at McDonald's and people would like look at what they wanted on the menu. He's like, that menu hasn't changed since you're 8. Like, what changed about it, right? That's what McDonald's service is all about. You're supposed to be able to go, ugh, have it shipped out to you in 2 minutes. When that breaks down, when that kind of order system, as they have done now, where they try to do automatic and then there's some convoluted system that doesn't work. Don't tell me nobody eats at McDonald's, because everyone does. They serve a lot of burgers. But at the same time, it doesn't just kind of falter, right? It doesn't just it's like the entire system goes down, and your version of the brand goes down because they haven't been able to service you because some dummy can't figure out the system. Much like when you go on self-service lines and you find out people don't know how to use self-service lines. And it's like the most convoluted, it's like secondary math. But the real reason that you're trying to kind of, create these things, and this comes back to the soup Nazi, I guess, a little bit, is the consequences of inaction. Rob Cornelis, who did game-face sports training, used to talk about this. Consequences of inaction are, you don't marry the girl, you don't propose, she's going to marry somebody else. There's no two ways about it. We're not going to have it to where she sticks around. Some people are dumb, most people aren't. So if you don't buy the product now, guess what? When you come back, that product may not be available to you. at all. Or it may be available to you at a higher price at a worse location, because we don't have the opportunity. The problem is when you overextend yourself, you are not helping yourself. They think that they're getting one over on you. So if you already have 20 clients for your stuff, and I know I'm kind of hitting a finite number, but all of a sudden you get that person that decides last minute that they're going to do it, and they're going to tire kick and get you to pay you less, and then actually get you to run around and do it around the Christmas holiday to do all the IT. Nay. No, I mean, be honest. What does that do? They're not going to help you later on. In fact, they're going to talk more smack about you because of the fact that you did that. They got one over on you, and they didn't do it, right? You've dealt with that. The people that try to, oh, hey, I'll go in your networking group and then I'll pay later. The hamburger for today for the $1 tomorrow, right? The wimpy thing. And what happens? They usually are the ones that complain the most. They don't give you the most value, and in fact, they trash your product more than anybody else, right?
Yeah.
The consequences of inaction, cut it out. Yeah. Sorry, you didn't want to marry me. You didn't want to put a ring on it. Beyonce was right. It's true, and it sucks, but it's true, right? That you have to actually be that way. If you don't want to be a part of it, you can't be a part of it.
Well, clients that are looking for a bargain or end up being the biggest pains in the butt.
Correct.
And you end up working twice as hard, and you'd rather get paid and actually be worth your time than sacrifice that.
I got criticized a little bit because of our sponsorships. We, the Pocket Gophers, we did not accept anything under $1,500. So many people try to give me $500, $200. Nope. I don't care that the season's going. We are the Cadillac of what we're doing. The difference is the people that actually sponsored us got more value. We actually put more value into them. Guess what? That restaurant that sponsored us filled. That restaurant that chose not to, that said we were too high priced, did not. Yeah. Our folks, and some things are not best for you. They're just not good for you. Respect your brand, respect yourself, right?
Well, I see it in my networking group. There's a lot of free groups out there, or very cheap ones, and long story short is they attract a certain type of person. Not that it's bad, that's just not my client.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to attract a higher end client, and that higher end client is going to get more from my group and benefit. And not only that, but there are folks that can write a check for $4 grand, $5 grand, 10 grand, 15 grand.
It's the bitching.
Right? And
the bitching.
Exactly.
By the way, how many times have you serviced that one client? You've helped them out, and then they are the ones that complain the most.
Right. Yep.
All the time. I mean, that's the thing is like, you can help anybody you want, but and I've brought stuff to other people, and I had a person that like I've helped before, and then they were the biggest complainer, even though I just helped them. It's just the way that people are run. When they think that they get something, suddenly they think that they own something, even if they have no equity in it. And that's one of the things, consequences of inaction. Cut them out. By the way, while they're doing that, they're actually hurting your other clients. And it's not just whether your other clients are paying more, your other clients are diminished on their service, specifically because you're dedicating time to them.
Right.
So that you could dedicate a little extra to them. So if you have that one client that's been with you since the beginning, when you bought the business, who loves you, who does everything right, who pays the most, and then you're actually going to diminish the amount of equity that they have for somebody that's going to go cheap, what does that tell you? Tells you need to listen to your mother more, right? Because she knew that guy was bad, right? Well, but I'm sorry, but it comes back to the same type of thing. It's all kind of a parade towards not just the wedding, but the end relationship. And the problem is that way too many people avoid that. They think that it's just a sell and then you move on, and that's not the way it goes. I realize that a lot of this comes into a lecturing system, but I always feel that it's better for people to get sick of you. People that gonna get tired of you. Let you tell me that you're just done with me, that's fine. But it's about differentiating yourself. I'm sure that you have a different view of me than you would have if I met you in a networking group. Doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but at least you've listened to me for 2 hours, and I've rambled on and I've talked about different concepts, and we've kind of done certain things, but you have a different kind of opinion of me, right? Than somebody else that didn't do that. Maybe just watched online, Eric. But now that you're here. But at the same time, it's because you cared. We invested time together and we did things. Problem is that certain people will not kind of get that time with me, so they'll choose to feel certain things about my brand without even knowing me, without ever kind of doing it. But the whole idea is to constantly expand. You know, I always view that as we close this thing, you need to stop making excuses. You know, the excuses are, well, this person will pay me tomorrow. Well, I need this business because this helps me later on. That's an excuse. I'll do this tomorrow. Doesn't happen that way. It's not how things work. You know, it's about leveraging everything that you have in your brand. So if you can leverage everything that you have in your brand, you'll win. You know, because it never ends, honestly. So if I can preach one thing to you, it never ends. It never stops. And you're always going to be fighting. I don't care if you have 20 people at your IT business and you have capacity. If you have those cheap people, they aren't part of it. You're marketing towards those people that care. And once, by the way, you sell out, I better see 20% more that you're charging. Because guess what? Our new charges, maybe not to the current customers, maybe to somebody else who doesn't know your product, doesn't know your price. You need to have respect for what you do. Because if you don't have respect, what ends up happening? Everybody leaves you. Everyone finds the new best thing that they can respect. So I want to say thank you. I know some of this is, you know, kind of heady coming into almost 8 o'clock at night now. But thank you very much. I enjoyed doing this. Yeah, thank you. So anyway, you can watch this online as well, and so everything else. And then if you have cards, you can send them to me, and I've got cards for you as well. Thank you very much.
All right.
Very common, thank you.